Hey guys, what we're going to be doing today is something called solving a quadratic equations, but it's going to be a little different. So make sure you have the packet for day 2 ready, pencil and a calculator, because this is a lot of writing involved for today. So what happens, which is what we're going to be looking at, if a quadratic is not set equal to 0, because that's the only way we know how to solve a quadratic at this rate is if it's set equal to 0 in order to factor it. So what happens if that's the case? For example, like this. How would you solve the equation x squared plus 10 equals 3x plus 20? Okay, so the first thing is what we need to look at is how do we get that 3x plus 20 over to the x squared side? We got to bring it over there to keep our x squared positive. So we need to move it over there. So how do we do that? Well, first we're going to use the inverse operations. In order to move across an equal sign, you have to do the opposite operation and keep it equal. Then you have to make sure you bring your like terms together. And if there aren't like terms, it just gets added into the expression. And then the last thing is make sure your quadratic is in descending order, meaning highest exponent to lowest exponent. So it's factorable. So let's practice this together. So when we do this, don't forget our steps in order to solve a quadratic. You have to make sure the equation's set equal to 0. That's why we had that as the first step. So my first thing is I'm going to move the 20 over because I have a like term on the other side to put it with. So I bring down my x squared and I do 10 minus 20 and I get negative 10 equals, and then I have 3x. Now my next step would be, okay, what do I have to do here to get my 3x over? Oh, I have to subtract it because that right-hand side has to be equal to 0, meaning nothing could be left there. So I cross it off. I'm left with x squared. And then I'm going to write my 3x here because there's nothing to combine it with. Minus 10 equals 0. There were no like terms there. And I wanted it in descending order. So now my next step would be set equal to 0. Now I factor it. This is a trinomial, so I need to list my factors of negative 10. Multiply your 1 and negative 10. Get negative 10. Negative 10 is 1. Negative 1 and positive 10. Negative 2, positive 5. Positive 1, negative 10. And positive 2, negative 5. Which are going to add to give me negative 3. That would be positive 2 and negative 5. So I bring my x squared down. I separate my negative 3 to positive 2x, negative 5x, and I bring down my minus 10 equals 0. Now I just group it and factor out my GCF, which for this is x and for this is negative 5. So I'm left with x times x plus 2 minus 5 times x plus 2 equals 0. Now my next step is factor out my common factor, which is x plus 2. And then your x minus 5 comes after. And now it's still equal to 0. Don't forget to carry that down. Now I'm going to have to start doing the work on this side over here. So I'm going to bring up my factors. Set those each equal to 0. Tee it off. You have x plus 2 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. So if I do x plus 2 equals 0, I know my answer's got to be negative 2 because they're always opposite your factors. And then I have x minus 5 equals 0. Therefore, I know x has to equal positive 5. So those are my two solutions, negative 2 and positive 5. So I could put them in solution set notation brackets. So that indicates that I have two answers for this quadratic. And those would be your answers. So there's only one extra step we're going to be working on today. Okay? So if you have any questions, just message me, pause the video, and copy this down. Last thing I just want to remind you is that I want you to try the next three on your own. And if you get any answers wrong, make sure you check it with the next video that I'm going to make. And make sure you complete the Google Classroom form assignment that is on the Google Classroom for today. All right, again, message me if you have any questions.